global is not just something that's added on to the top. It's not that you get this, what's the word I want, classic American narrative or straight American narrative about U.S. history, and then somehow the global piece is just sort of added on as a veneer. I think each of us is really taken seriously when we started to write these chapters to totally reconceive and rethink of what happens when you put the United States in a larger global context. I think the other thing that was going on is that students really wanted this and teachers really wanted this. We live in a very connected world, and our students have a very different educational experience than I think we ourselves have. They have the internet, they have Facebook, they have all these connections just across the nation, across the globe, across the world. The percentage of students that actually study abroad these days is pretty dramatic. And so I think they themselves don't see U.S. history in this tiny little box, if you will. They themselves see it in this very large context. I think they're looking for an analytical way to put their own experience into a historical and into an intellectual experience. The writing of the textbook itself and the development of the digital have been things that have happened absolutely in concert with one another. And it turns out that actually made a big difference. If you're thinking about a book not just as something that's on a page, but in fact something that has this other really much more complex life in a digital form, you begin to think differently about how you're telling the story. And I think what people will find when they use Global Americans is that you have this very rich, developed text, but you have all these other pieces that go along with it, and that can really help students flesh out what the text is telling you in much more interactive ways and much more interesting and complex ways. As scholars, we tend to get very narrow in what we think about and what we study and what we research. So it's really a treat and an amazing thing to be able to think about the whole entire scope of U.S. history and begin to see the connections and to get excited about those connections, things that I had never really thought about. And one of the things I hope that we all can do as we've been putting this textbook together and as people use the textbook is that students begin to see those connections as well across a very broad spectrum of history and begin to connect different ideas and just and be sort of amazed at the complexity.